Hello, and Merry Christmas. If you don't know, I'm a bit of a Christmas movie fiend. I watch a lot of Christmas movies every year, some old, some new, and I figured why not share the love and give my
Ultimate Christmas tier list.
ultimate meaning until I get bored and feel the need to re-rank them. There's some movies on this list that I think are underrated and I'd love to give them their flowers, and then I'd also love to absolutely dog on the movies that I don't like as a strongly opinionated man. That being said, this is just my opinion, so make sure you drop your opinion in the comments down below. And if you like this kind of content, make sure you subscribe and send this to a friend that you think would enjoy. The way this tier list is set up is you have S tier for superior. This is the best of the best, the top of the top. And then you have A, B, C, D, and Shadow Realm. The Shadow Realm is reserved for only the worst of the worst, the deepest of sinning Christmas movies. We will get to the Shadow Realm later in this video, so make sure you stay to the end. Starting off in the D tier, we have Violent Night. When this movie came out, I saw it in theaters twice for God knows why, and I do think it's genuinely a very enjoyable and funny movie. This movie was genuinely the only time I've almost thrown up in a movie theater, and so I have to give it its credit for that. And I also have to come clean and say that I gave this movie 5 stars on Letterboxd, but it was a funny kind of 5-star, like when you watch Twilight for the first time. At the end of the day, this movie's campy and cheap and stupid. It's just violently funny, and I think you should watch it if you're into that kind of thing, but I really don't need to watch it every year. It's probably not good for me to watch it every year. Next up in D tier is Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas. While I do really love the classic 2D style of Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas, the storylines are just kinda depressing. It's a really sweet short that you can keep on in the background, but for me, I never intentionally turn it on to sit down and watch. I do really love the Max and Goofy storyline in Once Upon a Christmas, but even this one packs a really heavy punch that isn't necessarily just a jolly Christmas special. And while that is fine and dandy, I really enjoy like heavy punch Christmas movies, but in a Mickey short, Twice Upon a Christmas is a lot more jolly, and so I'm more likely to turn it on. Our last movie in D tier is going to be a controversial pick, so buckle up. And that would be White Christmas. I really do think there's a harmful rhetoric that if a movie is old, then it's not as good. It's just not true. Some of the best movies ever made are air quote old. And White Christmas is enjoyable, but it's very long and it's very slow and it's not Christmassy at all. I'm tired of pretending that White Christmas is a Christmas movie because it's not Christmassy until the last 10 minutes. They're like, oh, but they sing a song about snow. Yeah, they sing a song about snow, and then the point is where they go has no snow. The music is fun, it's very classy, I like the dance sequences, but I just cannot stand when the main conflict of a movie could have been completely avoided with just a little bit of communication. Next time you watch this movie, pay attention because it is exactly the kind of hijinks they get into on Disney Channel sitcoms. A classic that I really don't feel the need to watch every year. Moving on to C tier, we have Jingle All the Way. I'd like to say that I understand that this movie really is not that good. It's kind of just 90 minutes of Arnold doing Arnold things, except this time he's disappointing Anakin Skywalker. But this movie is genuinely so quotable. If you grew up on this movie, I hope you understand. It's just some of the weirdest writing in a movie I've seen, but I can quote like every single line. Next up in the C tier is probably another controversial pick, and that is The Santa Claus. I've never really loved The Santa Claus. I didn't really grow up watching it because I thought it was really sad. And not to be the guy that's like, oh, you just don't like sad movies because it has to be perfect Christmas Hallmark movie. And I understand it's all about the character arc of Scott Calvin, and Tim Allen is really good in the movie, but I never personally connected with it, and I always thought it was just a little boring. On a similar note, in the C tier is The Santa Claus 2. The Santa Claus 2 is really funny, I'll give it that, and I think that they built a super cool world that expanded on the first one a lot. Some of the set pieces in this movie are genuinely so impressive and really cool. At the end of the day, it's kind of a generic sequel that I didn't really believe a lot of the characters' decisions, and it kind of like shoehorned in this other Claus so that we could make more movies. The Santa Claus 3 will not be on this list because I haven't seen it, because I didn't grow up watching them and I didn't really like them. So make sure you drop your Santa Claus 3 reviews in the comments down below. Next up in the C tier is Mickey's Twice Upon a Christmas. I watch Mickey's Twice Upon a Christmas every year. I grew up on it. I think it's so fun and so jolly. Even though the 3D animation is a little odd, I really do have a lot of fun and nostalgic memories with this movie. The music is super good and the storylines are super fun. You got Daisy and Minnie on the ice rink. You got Max and Goofy making popcorn. Although I will say, I think it's weird that Max brings home a girl that's not Roxanne. I don't know what that decision decision was, but the fact that her name is Mona is, no, red flag, send her home. I'd also like to highlight a specific moment I noticed on my last rewatch. In the opening storyline where Minnie and Daisy are competing on this ice skating rink, Minnie flies by Daisy and says, "Quack, quack." I don't know why I felt the need to highlight this, I just felt like that was probably really racist. Next up in the C tier is A Christmas Story. I know a lot of people really love this movie, and I do think it's an enjoyable watch. I connect with it pretty well because I read the book in high school, but at the end of the day, this movie's kind of hard to enjoy because it's just a bunch of punk, whiny kids. And I understand that's the point, and it's the Red Ryder BB gun, and it's the leg lamp, and it's the whole thing, but it's not one that I feel the need to turn on every year. The final pick for C tier is a movie that came out this year, and that is The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. Do not think that C tier means that this is a bad movie. I put this movie at the top of C tier because it is very enjoyable and I think everyone should watch it. It's a very sweet family movie that I think was very needed in a time of like gritty adult Christmas movies. Has a very sweet Christian message that doesn't feel like it's shoving Jesus down your throat, which is also very needed right now. Lauren Graham is great, P. Holmes is great, the whole cast is great, the writing is good, but it's ripped pretty much directly from the book, which I'm not mad because I love the book. This is a very sweet and fun and necessary movie, I think, but I also don't really see it becoming a classic, if that makes sense. All right, we've got 3 tiers left. These are the best movies of Christmas, so if you're not watching these movies, what are you doing? The first pick for B tier is Illuminations The Grinch. I'm really glad that we have a Grinch movie that doesn't make children cry. Thanks, Jim Carrey. But also, the soundtrack for this movie goes so hard. Freaking Tyler, the creator on this movie, was such a bold choice, and it paid off so well. While generally I'm not super impressed with Illuminations' filmography, this movie kind of stands out to me. The animation is gorgeous, the soundtrack is great, the story is super sweet, and it's just a really enjoyable movie to turn on. I think it's super funny, Benedict Cumberbatch does great, and it checks all the boxes for just a really sweet Christmas movie to turn on with the family. Next up in the B tier is Home Alone 2. Home Alone 2 takes everything that Home Alone does well and just turns it up to a 10. I think what makes the Home Alone movies so attractive is it lets you live out that childhood fantasy of, what if I was by myself? Could I make it? Could I do it? I would have so much fun with no adult supervision. And Home Alone 2 hits that nail on the head so hard by letting us live in this fantastical 90s New York with the big skyscrapers and the hotels and the limos with the cheese pizza, and it's perfect. Home Alone 2 really is the only— holy crap, is that Donald Trump? Home Alone 2 really is the only worthy Home Alone sequel. We've tried to remake this formula 1,000 times since, and it hasn't worked because there's only one Kevin McAllister, and it's Macaulay Culkin. Next up in B tier is a movie I'm ready to start a fight about, and that is The Polar Express. I'm tired of pretending that The Polar Express is the perfect Christmas movie because it's not. And I know everyone says, oh, it's just the animation. Once you get past the animation, it's not the animation. The animation isn't the problem. The main complaint about this movie is the uncanny valley animation style. I think this is so interesting because The Polar Express is a very successful movie, but it single-handedly couldn't keep the 3D motion capture animation style alive. I personally don't really mind the animation style. It's just after a while, it gets kind of hard on the eyes, especially when you go to like the North Pole and all the elves look like this. And then Steven Tyler is there for some reason. I will say the music is phenomenal and iconic, and I think this is probably one of the best voice acting performances of all time. Tom Hanks playing so many characters in this movie is so impressive, and he does an incredible job. And I do watch The Polar Express every year. I don't hate The Polar Express. I'm just really don't think it's as good as everyone talks about. Let me know your Polar Express thoughts in the comments because I'm very curious. Now that I've lost half the audience because of my controversial Polar Express review, let's move on to the next movie in the B tier. Our next B tier movie is Klaus. This movie came out a while ago, and I think most people have seen it by now, but it's still gatekept by Netflix. If you haven't seen it and you get the chance, this movie is so sweet and has such incredible animation. Looking at the behind the scenes on how they animated this movie, I'm just genuinely flabbergasted that it worked. The setting is gorgeous, the cast is great, the music is awesome, and it has a very deep emotional weight in ways that other Christmas movies don't necessarily have. If you haven't seen Klaus, I highly recommend it. It's an incredible watch for the whole family. Our last movie in the B tier is none other than Arthur Christmas. This is another Christmas movie that I think is criminally underrated. It is genuinely just so funny and has a really unique take on the North Pole and that aesthetic and how Christmas works. The whole spy espionage vibe is really unique and fun and makes for a really engaging movie. I really do love and enjoy this movie and its British humor, but I also, upon rewatch, completely forgot that it's a little sexist.
It's impossible.
They used to say it was impossible to teach women to read.
Anyway, go watch Arthur Christmas. I think it's on Tubi. All right, I have 2 Christmas movies in the A tier. Let's get into them. Number 1 in the A tier is Christmas with the Cranks. This is a movie that I have to watch every year. It's Jamie Lee Curtis. It's Tim Allen. It's so condensed, if that makes sense. The older I get, the more I appreciate Christmas with the Cranks because the more I get it. This movie tackles the idea that Christmas is just too expensive and it's such a hoopla and we've completely lost the meaning, and so the Cranks decide they're just gonna skip Christmas. There's a really cool and sweet character arc to the Cranks as they remember what it's all about. I probably rank Christmas with the Cranks a lot higher than most people, but this is usually like the first Christmas movie I turn on because I could watch it at any point. And our second movie in the A tier is Die Hard. I'm tired of pretending that there's a fight over if this is a Christmas movie or not. We as a culture have decided that it's a Christmas movie, so move on. Anyway, Die Hard is a classic action thriller that I really just can't get enough of. This is peak Bruce Willis in this movie, and Alan Rickman's face falling off of Nakatomi Plaza makes this entire watch worth it. I really don't have a ton to say because Die Hard really is genuinely just one of the best action movies ever made. I hadn't seen Die Hard until I got to college and I realized how much I was missing. If you haven't seen it, definitely go watch it. I think it appeals to all audiences. All right, everyone, it's time to get into the S tier movies, the best of the best, the top of the top. But first, we need to visit
The Shadow Realm.
I have 2 movies in the Shadow Realm that I'd like to talk about. The first movie is a movie that I'd love to do a full video on someday, so I won't go too ham. This is a movie called Christmas Time... ... Originally titled My Brother the Time Traveler, this was an indie GoFundMe movie that has Myrrh from Impractical Jokers? The story of how this movie got made is actually kind of wild, so I'll save it for another day. Essentially, this movie is about a guy who lost touch with his brother after his parents died a long time ago. So his wife contacts his brother so that they can spend Christmas together in a remote cabin, which is a really easy way to get murdered, by the way. The whole movie's really bizarre. His estranged brother thinks he's a time traveler, but also within the world of the movie, they kind of establish that he is, and he travels through time by switching his body temperature very suddenly. I don't know, the production value isn't great. It has some of the weirdest, wackiest writing I'd ever seen. And also Myrrh is there somehow. There's some really dark, bizarre comedy in this movie that I just don't have time to get into, so hopefully I'll have the time to make a full video about this movie someday. The other movie I'd like to talk about in the Shadow Realm was part of the reason I even made this video in the first place, so that I could highlight how bad this movie is. And that is the Amazon Prime original Candy Cane Lane, starring Eddie Murphy. We turned this movie on thinking it would just be like a goofy Christmas movie because it's Eddie Murphy or whatever. Boy, was I wrong. This movie goes in so many different directions and it has like 8 plot lines that it never really completes, and is also just weirdly sacrilegious? We almost turned this movie off halfway through, it was so bad, but I really felt like I had to know how it ended. I'm gonna spoil the movie because I don't think you should watch it. Hi, it's me from the future. The following clip I could not find anywhere online, but I felt like it was so absolutely insane that you had to see it, so I pirated it for you. Please enjoy. The scene that stuck out to me specifically though is his son really just wants to make beats. There's this really insane scene where like his daughter's like trying out for track or something, I don't know. And his son like sneaks off into the band room and like starts making a beat with all the instruments in there. And then the maids of milking come and attack him and like start filling up the room with milk.
Milk me?
Hi. Got milk?
But then Santa's there too, and there's this villain lady that wants to turn him into a freaking like Christmas Village character. It's one of the dumbest movies I've ever seen. I really cannot recommend it. All right, now that we're out of the shadow realm, it's time for These are the top of the top, the best of the best, the movies that you have to watch every freaking year, the week of Christmas. You know how there's like a hierarchy of like when you watch Christmas movies? S tier is the Christmas movies that like you have to watch Christmas week because any other time is too early. First up in the S tier is none other than National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I know a lot of people don't like this movie, and there are 2 scenes to skip, I will give you that. But also, I think National Lampoon's really is like the quintessential Christmas movie. There's not really like a plot line, and that's the point. What makes Christmas Vacation so brilliant is there is no gimmick. It's just Clark wants a great Christmas, but his extended family is crazy and they don't mesh well, so he's just trying to keep it all together. Now, there are a lot of like goofy hijinks that are like slapstick comedy kind of stuff, but this movie at the end of the day is quite grounded. This movie is so relatable and funny, you just can't not laugh at it. But also, once he's in the mall and once you hear Mele Kalikimaka, jump for the remote and fast forward like 60 seconds because it's just not it. I don't know what Chevy Chase was smoking when he made all these movies, but man. Next up in the S tier is a movie that I will die on. I genuinely believe this is one of the best modern Christmas movies we've ever made, but no one gets to watch it because it's stuck on Apple Plus. And that is none other than Spirited. This Christmas musical is so freaking good that I have to watch it every year. Has Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds. The music is iconic, it's hilarious, the set pieces are huge, the musical numbers pay off so well, the story is heartwarming and sweet, brings me to tears. If you have Apple Plus, go watch Spirited. And if you don't, find a friend that does so you can watch Spirited. If you think you don't have Apple TV Plus, make sure you check because no one intentionally buys Apple TV Plus. It just usually gets slapped on when you buy a new iPad. I cannot sing the praises of Spirited enough. It is a 10 out of 10 Christmas musical. All right, 3 movies left. Here are my top 3 Christmas movies on this ranking. Number 3 is none other than How the Grinch Stole Christmas with Jim Carrey. This movie is so dark and weird. It's so claustrophobic and is shot in such a disorienting way. I feel like this is the only Dr. Seuss adaptation that captures how weird his books were.
I'll get you, and I'll look like a bloody accident.
All right, fair, but we don't talk about the Cat in the Hat. This movie is pure nightmare fuel, and that's because Jim Carrey's the whole movie. Jim Carrey's Grinch is the Grinch, and I think we're all just accepting of that. I watched this movie at a really young age, and some of the most vivid nightmares of my life are about Jim Carrey's Grinch. And if that's not a convincing performance, then I don't know what is. All right, guys, our second to last movie on this list, S tier, second best Christmas movie of all time, in my opinion, is none other than Home Alone. Similar to what I said about Home Alone 2, Home Alone lets you live that childlike fantasy of what if I was on my own? And Kevin does it so well. He is such a freaking psychopath, and I love it. This was always the movie that my family had to watch on Christmas Eve, and I remember as a kid really just waiting till the end so I could watch all the slapstick hijinks of the Wet Bandits. Now that I've gotten a little older, I really appreciate this movie as a whole and think it's probably gonna stand the test of time forever. This movie is so 90s and yet so timeless. Macaulay Culkin is iconic, the Wet Bandits are iconic, the family sucks and it's iconic. I love Home Alone and I will always love Home Alone. And if you don't like Home Alone, there's the door. Actually, that's a window, but you know, it's the same sentiment. All right, everyone, number 1, final movie of the list. I've had so much fun talking about these movies. If you had fun, make sure you smash that subscribe button. Now, the number 1 Christmas movie of all time is none other than Elf. This is just my opinion, but personally, I think Elf really embodies everything a Christmas movie should be. It has the winter wonderland, the whimsy, the amazing soundtrack, the New York downtown Christmas vibe. It has the family story. It has the grumpy businessman that, you know, has a character arc. Will Ferrell is Buddy the Elf and will always be Buddy the Elf. My Elf rewatch this year was actually quite an interesting experience because now that I'm an adult, I appreciate how much hard work went into this movie. Jon Favreau is an incredible director and the cinematography of Elf is subtly awesome. I love Christmas so much, and Buddy the Elf is the perfect human embodiment of the childlike wonder that you feel around Christmas time. And then his dad is the chiseled adult that we all turn into, and then they both have something to learn from each other. Elf is my favorite Christmas movie of all time, but I want to know what yours is. Please drop a comment on your thoughts, your ranking, your favorite movies down below. I'd love to interact with you. If you like this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button and send it to a friend that you think would enjoy. Hope you have a very Merry Christmas. God bless us, every one of us. Until then, bye.